Hey everybody, today's video is going to be all about channel versus sandwich balisongs and explaining the difference between the two. Can I get a double aerial? Oh gosh, not really. Anyway, so I want to get right into it. Channel versus sandwich. I've got a channel balisong in the form of the Vulp and a sandwich being represented by the glider Bermuda. So sandwich balisongs have two pieces of metal that are held together at the ends by pivots or by screws. So you've got one screw here and at least one screw down here holding it together. The glider Bermuda has G10, so you've got the black is the metal, then the G10. So this third screw is just holding the G10 onto the metal, but it's not necessary if this was all metal. So basically for sandwich you're going to have minimum 2 screws per handle, so a total of 4 screws minimum. Now channel, the handles are made up of one piece of metal, and what that allows you to do is only have 1 screw per handle, so only 2 screws. Now one of the benefits of that is that the tuning can be way better. Now that doesn't mean that sandwich can't have a really good tune, but it's a lot easier to get a great tune on a channel balisong because you only have to worry about one point. You know, you only have to machine this one area and get it right, versus if you're doing sandwich you have to machine everything perfectly down here and here, so that way when you screw it all together it's going to have perfect tolerances, because the pivots could be perfect, but if something is really bad down here it's going to affect the tuning all the way up at the pivots. So that is the biggest benefit for channel. Another benefit is the manufacturing side of it, because channel balisongs are a lot easier to manufacture and put together because you only have to deal with these 1 screws. As if you've ever taken apart your balisongs, you'd know that channel's just a lot easier to deal with than sandwich because it's less parts. And less parts is always going to mean you can produce it faster and cheaper. So that is also a thing that companies like about channel. Also, I think a big thing with channel, the sound difference. A lot of us, when we think about a good sounding balisong, the general standard nowadays is based on a channel balisong. I haven't oiled my Vulp in a while, so it's not the greatest right now, but you get the idea that this sounds a lot nicer than this. Now granted, this is on bearings, so it's not going to sound the same as something on bushings, but I can make a whole nother video talking about pivot systems if you guys want. I could also talk about Zen pins versus Tang pins if you guys want, but those are the two big differences between these. But there's also another difference, and it's basically the biggest downfall to a channel balisong. So on sandwich, because we have these 2 pieces of metal, we naturally get this giant cutout along the side. Right? That's just what's going to happen. You're attaching two things with 2 spacers. That's what's going to happen. Giant hole. And that giant hole is actually really good for flipping, because that hole is like a giant cutout for your fingers to get all of this wonderful grip. So despite the fact that this balisong has no cutouts, it still has a ton of grip, in part because of the G10, but also because of this giant cutout. You see my finger just sinks into the cutout there, and that gives you extra grip when doing tricks. But the problem with the channel is because we're using 1 piece of metal, we don't have any cutout here. And without that cutout, you lose a ton of grip. And that basically requires that either something is done to the metal, like a bead blast or a satin finish, something to give it more grip, or you have to have really nice big cutouts on the front of the handle. Otherwise, it's just going to be too slippery. Now, of course, metal does have to do a lot with this. Different metals have better grip. But that is a general case that when you have channel, it's more important that you have cutouts on the fronts of the handles than it is with sandwich. But, so what some people can do to alleviate this is do a speed channel. Now what a speed channel is, I didn't bring out my one balisong with the speed channel to show this, which would have been smart, but basically it's a cutout right here in the channel to mimic the cutout of a sandwich balisong. And that gives you all of those same benefits that you can get from a sandwich balisong while still maintaining the better tolerances of channel. And that's kind of where the whole debate lies today. There is such a thing as chandwich balisongs, like the Squid Industries Tsunami. What that is it's basically two pieces of metal, but then when you screw them together, they're made in such a way that there's no gap in the middle. So instead of this gap, there would be material that fills in the gap, and it would look like this, but two pieces put together. So basically, if you took the worst of channel and the worst of sandwich and you put them together in one balisong, I have no clue why companies do it or why people like it, but it is a thing that exists. Like I said, I think it's taking the worst of both worlds and combining them, but to each their own. That is pretty much where the community stands today. In general, the community tends to prefer channel balisongs, at least as of right now. Sandwich don't really, they're not a big thing anymore. So that is kind of become the standard, is the channel balisong. And I think the community is moving in such a direction that it will stay that way, but they do seem to be moving in the direction that most companies are starting to put speed channels in all of their balisongs, or at least have the option. So it does seem like in the future of balisongs is going to be channel handles with a speed channel on the side to help with grip. And that is the difference between channel versus sandwich. Like I said, if you want me to talk about bushings versus bearings versus washers, or Zen pins versus Tang pins, let me know in the comments below. I would be happy to make a video explaining all of that to you guys. But that is all that I have for you today. Leave any video suggestions in the comments down below. Hope you've all had a great day, and as always, keep flipping.